This TFMR podcast is brought to you by your friends at JM Bullion. Visit jmbullion.com for all your gold and silver bullion needs. Welcome back to the TF Metals Report podcast highlights for the week of August 23rd, 2021. As we left off last week, we warned you that this week was going to be important and significant. Lots of data along the way, but also, and most importantly, Chairman Powell's Jackson Hole speech where he was going to lay out what, if anything, he planned to do with the current QE program. Well, we made it to Friday, and you're listening to that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But as the week began back on Monday, we noticed something very important, with perhaps foreshadowing what was to come. The price of COMEX gold moved above and closed above its 50-day moving average for the first time since the June FOMC day of June 16th. Would this be a major development as we went through the week? Turns out it was. All right, so gold. Here's your one really good sign of the day. Again, double bottom at 1680 or so back in March. Grand at double bottom at 1680. With the second attempt at that level being on the Sunday night washout 2 weeks ago. Now look at the recovery. Look at the recovery beginning in early April. Okay, going up. And what level did it run into first and then finally get through? The 50-day moving average. And then once it did, look what it did the next day. It extended, consolidated for 2 weeks at around, 1,800 or so. And then blasted to 1920 during the month of May. So now look what's happening now. Come off of 1680, which is a double bottom versus the month of March. And now today, getting up through the 50-day moving average. So tomorrow's an interesting day. If we can extend tomorrow up toward 1820, like we extended that second day back in the middle of April, then we might go sideways and then blast. And then the next key level, obviously, is 1840 and those highs back in July. So this looks interesting. It makes tomorrow look interesting, too, as to whether gold can continue now that it's above its 50-day. Of course, another major player this week is going to be the dollar index. We're in late summer, the doldrums, not a lot of human traders around, and a lot of the major algorithms, the HFT trading machines, are going to take their buy and sell cues for the metals from moves in the dollar. So we got to watch the dollar index more closely than usual at this time of the year. Would the dollar index start to break down? Well, that would help the metals if it did. And so the dollar index was a big part of our focus at TF Metals Report on Tuesday, August 24th. For the dollar, this is the key chart for this week. Because there's two trend lines here. One we broke today. The trend line that goes all the way back to June 16th, when the Fed not only started shifting their dot plots around, but started paying 5 basis points on excess reserves. And oh, by the way, we're another 1.1 trillion plus in overnight reverse repo now. That Zero Hedge wrote something today, say it's going to 2 trillion. Probably. Why wouldn't it? Anyway, going back to that day, you can see you connect that through the lows on August the 4th, right before Chlamydia started talking about how he wanted the Fed to taper soon. So there's a trend line here. You want to connect those two. It would make sense to connect those lows. That trend line tomorrow is about 92.40. By later this week, it's going to be more like 92.50. That will be the level to watch, the primary one. If Powell, one way or another, gets a sell the dollar reaction to whatever he has to say. Now, there's this other trend line that you could start back when Chlamydia spoke on August the 4th, and you can see today we broke down through there. Okay? So it would suggest that we're headed back to the main one that begins on June the 16th. But we'll see. Again, that will be, if we could somehow break down following Powell, finish the week down here like 92.20 or something, well, that would be a really good sign for us. As if to emphasize just how important the chart of the dollar is this week, we talked about it again on Wednesday, August 25th. But yet the metals are hanging in there. Well, why? Well, because the dollar is down. Look, this week, straight down. Big drop Monday, Red candles again Tuesday and Wednesday. That's 4 consecutive red candles. Now, it's not out of the, it's not like it's, oh boy, now there's a major reversal. We can't claim that yet. But the 2 things we'll watch tomorrow and then Friday will be the 2 things I've put on this chart. One, the trend line from June 16th through that, whatever that day is, that's Chlamydia Day, August the 4th. And that extends on to where it'll be about 92.50 on Friday. But then even probably more significant, the 50-day moving average, which is currently about 92.50. So if something were to happen to the dollar, Powell makes no mention of taper, makes it sound like, nothing's ever going to happen until he sees substantial further progress and all this. And let's just say the dollar dumps 0.75 of a point on Friday and finishes up down like near 92. Okay, then we'd have something to talk about on this chart. For now, it's just 4 straight down days, and you can see the influence. Again, with bond yields up 10 basis points on the 10-year note this week, typically that'd be a bad sign for the metals, right? But yet gold remains marginally higher and silver significantly higher. Why? Because the dollar is down. 70 cents on the week? So we will watch it. And with just 1 day to go before Powell's important Jackson Hole speech, Thursday, August 26th brought an important discussion of all the precious metals at TF Metals Report, but with a particular focus on gold. We had to be ready for just about anything on Friday, so we talked about the upside, the possible downside, what levels to watch into the Friday weekly close, so we're all on the same page ahead of that important day on Friday. We're going to start with gold, then go to silver, and then go to dollar, then go to silver. Gold picture is very clear. Okay? Clear downtrend line, right? That we banged into Tuesday and Wednesday. Getting support off of the 50-day like we hoped we would. We probed down, to near 1780 now 2 days in a row, but bounced. It looks like it wants to go higher. In the days and weeks ahead, if we can go higher from here, if this is the time we don't get the rug pulled out from us, and we go up through 1840, start going toward 1880 and 1920, this chart's going to look extremely bullish because the 50-day is going to turn up. It's going to move back up through the 100-day. The 100-day is going to move up through the 200-day. And by the end of September, this chart's going to look great as we enter the fourth quarter. But we could also just collapse and shit the bed tomorrow, too. So we'll see. The key levels to watch are going to be that trend line, which by tomorrow is about 1805? And then the 100-day and the 200-day. Can we get there tomorrow? I don't know. Can we get a $30 rally tomorrow? I suppose. But I'm not holding my breath. I mean, that may be more like next week. But anyway, this clearly shows you the levels to watch. And on Friday, August 27th, we finally reached the main event with Chairman Powell addressing the Jackson Hole Symposium this morning, giving some idea of what he thinks about taper and interest rate hikes and anything else that might be coming in 2022. And he really offered nothing. He said he's going to still be watching for substantial further progress before anything can be done regarding tapering, and that he's very aware from a historical perspective that any change in Fed policy doesn't really have an impact for 8 to 12 months, and God knows where the world will be in 8 to 12 months. And so gold has, in fact, rallied with the dollar selling off. It's exactly the situation we've been talking about for weeks, where the dollar was up on the rumor and down on the news, and gold was down on the rumor and up on the news. And as we wrap up the week in COMEX Gold, you can see on the chart that price is actually going to close above its 50-day moving average, above its 100-day moving average, and even above its 200-day moving average. A tremendous day, a tremendous week with gold up more than 2% on the week. So now here we go into next week. Again, I'd not like to sound like a broken record, but Powell himself said next week's job report will be important. And that is due next Friday at 8:30 Eastern. So we've had a great week. Charts are looking much better, but we're not out of the woods yet on this rebound. We'll wait and see what happens with the jobs report next Friday. That'll be a big one. Between now and then, though, take care, stay healthy, be safe, especially if you're along the U.S. Gulf Coast with a pending hurricane. And then come back next week for your next edition of the TF Metals Report podcast highlights.